Minimalists.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name is Joshua Fields Milburn.
And I am Ryan Nicodemus, and together we are the Minimalists. And we got a special guest today.
Indeed, we do. Welcome to episode 158. Today, we're going to talk about self-care. And we've got one of my favorite human beings in the world here, Randi Kay from the Simple Self-Care Podcast.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
So, Randi is from Fargo, North Dakota.
Yes. Does that place actually exist? Or is it just in the movies?
You tell me.
Man, we've not been to Fargo in forever, man. But yeah, that is what a beautiful city.
It's one of my top 10 cities for sure.
It really is. Culture per capita there is insane.
Well, we just tend not to go there in the winter or the summer.
Yeah.
There's a select few months where it's like perfect.
Yeah,
Right.
there's like a dozen days throughout the year where you go there and you're like, oh my God, I want to move here.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of like you said, culture per capita. It's a very big small town, and we were first exposed to that because Ryan and I and our friend Colin, who we were running the publishing company with at the time, we all lived in Missoula. So this was 2013. We were asked to come speak at a conference. That's where we first met you. Was this conference called Misfit Con?
And we turned them down like we do most conferences.
Right, several times actually.
Several times we turned them down.
And then Colin's the one who talked us into doing it. He's like, "Come on, guys, let's do it."
Well, I didn't go because that play.
Yeah, you were the lead in a play.
Yeah, and
first
it was
year
like
you
it was
weren't
like
there.
Yeah, it was opening weekend. I was doing that play, but man, when you guys came back, you and Colin came back, and you were just ecstatic about how awesome Fargo was, and I was like, God, like, I want to go to this conference next year.
And it was mainly because of Randi Kay right here.
Exactly. No, it is.
So today we're gonna
Right.
talk about self-care. Randi, how do we define self-care, and how do we do so in a way that isn't off-putting to someone like me?
Are you going to pull out crystals?
That I got one in my bag.
Wait, who's Crystal?
Self-care starts with crystals.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a very good question, and self-care has actually become kind of an annoying word, I think.
Right.
Because it's associated with a lot more superficial things like take a bubble bath or da-da-da. And those things are great, but that's only kind of scratching the surface. So
Quite literally.
Yeah.
I mean, the sort of, when I think of self-care, I often think of those like exfoliate at the spa.
Yeah.
And what's, they have these, they're like blow dry bars here. What's that called?
The blowouts.
Yeah.
Dude, I there's one like right down the street from me. Like Courtney Carver, when she was in LA last time, she was like, I went and got a blowout. And I was like, what is a blowout? And she's like, well, and I was like, oh, your hair does look awesome. She was like, Ryan, you should totally go and get a blowout.
But I think when it stops right there, then it's like trying to take some sort of pill to cure, whatever.
It's a short term.
It is a short-term fix, but when we talk about self-care, I think when you focus on it, you're also focused a lot more on looking inward.
Yeah, so I define it as the act of tuning in and then acting accordingly. And so these superficial acts can be ways to relax yourself and like switch up if you're having a crazy day, right? And then you're feeling anxious and then you're like, oh, I have an essential oil that calms me down. And so you take a whiff and then it kind of like changes
Calms
things.
you down a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like that is a really simple like superficial thing.
These things are okay. Like you're not saying superficial pejoratively. Like it is.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just like maybe like the first level,
Yeah.
Like it's something different that you can do. And going to the spa, like I feel like fits underneath the self-care umbrella. There's a time and place for that. But if you use that as an escape, that's a different thing,
So self-care isn't an escape. It's in a way the opposite of an escape.
It's like a gateway. It's like whatever it is that you can do that allows you to like say hi to yourself and remember that you're there and that you're breathing and like, oh, actually this thing that I'm doing is causing me anxiety, or this thing that I'm doing really brings me joy in a way I didn't really realize. So it's a bunch of things. It's different for everybody, but it's, I think self-care is just a good term for that, but it's kind of taken on its own beast these days because people are catching on with the marketing and all this stuff. And
it's a very broad It's a very broad term. It's like kind of like minimalism. I mean, it's a very broad it's a very broad term.
Yeah, I knew minimalism had jumped the shark in a way when I walked by like the Gap and it had shirts that just said minimalism on them. I'm like, if it was a minimalist shirt, you just wouldn't have a word on the front of it, right? Like that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So I like what you just said, but a way to say hi to yourself. So in a way, it's acknowledging you for who you are, acknowledging your thoughts, looking inward, because quite often we get caught up in the neurosis of everyday living and the endless rumination. And there's this study recently, we were talking about this on our Ask the Minimalist Anything live podcast for our Patreon supporters recently. And what I realized was that this endless rumination, there are some scientific studies now. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, are you familiar with her? She has a great podcast that, I mean, she really goes into the weeds. And I mean, it's one of those things you have to like put on 80% speed and then like take copious notes in order to understand it. She had another scientist on there who studies depression, and there's a link, not necessarily a direct link, but a subset of depressive people. We'll put a link to this episode in the show notes where she talks about depression. There's a link between inflammation and depression.
And rumination.
Yeah, and so one of the things that leads to inflammation is rumination. Not just standard thinking. We all have to think about our problems. We have to think to prepare for a podcast like this, but the rumination of sitting up at night in bed or worrying leads to inflammation in the body, and they're able to prove this now scientifically, which then of course leads to sadness, depression, etc. And one of the ways to combat that is to sort of pause for a second and say, hey, I need to notice what I'm going through so that I can take care of myself, and that's really where the self-care comes in.
Yeah, because a lot of these feelings we have, like whether it's anxiety or whether it's fear, I mean, they're symptoms, right? So when we have symptoms like that, it's checking in with yourself and understanding like, oh, like I have anxiety. That means maybe something needs to change.
Well, and what needs to change is the question. Like, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, Randy, I was feeling super anxious yesterday afternoon. And I know I didn't get a lot of sleep the night before, which I've been doing great in terms of sleep recently, but the night before was an anomaly, and so I can probably link it to that directly. But what do you do in a situation like that and I know you work with a lot of people who experience anxiety, when someone is feeling anxious like I was yesterday afternoon, like to the point where I was getting angry. And anger is not a typical emotion that I mean, you know me pretty well. You can't imagine me like wanting to throw something, but I felt that way. And I'm able to sort of repress that emotion. We were joking before the podcast started, like,
what was my memoir title?
The
power of
repression.
Power of repression.
What Ryan was saying is like the thing that differentiates us from chimpanzees is the fact that we can repress. Really, what he was saying is we don't have to act on some of these emotions. And so, noticing it obviously yesterday, but I felt super anxious. What do you talk to someone about if they're feeling anxious? What are some things to do?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. One thing, when you get to the anxious state, it's almost you're almost a little too far gone at that point.
Yeah, the water's already boiling.
Yeah, so you have like some of your rituals or things that you like to do that calm you down. Like for me, it is deep breathing, or like I was traveling here from South America yesterday, and it was a little stressful, and I just had that like almost a mantra, like, you can relax, you can calm down, just like kind of talking to yourself, which helps. But I think with anything that comes up regularly, like depression and anxiety and things like that, I like to look at it as becoming friends with it. And so when it comes up, being like, hey, what are you doing here? And how did you get here? And like, do you want to hang out? Okay, cool. Now you can go, and it's, instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling anxious. Now I'm feeling anxious that I'm feeling anxious. And why am I feeling angry now? And
I need to get rid of this anxiety and try to push it out. It's the same thing with meditation, where one of the mistakes that I often get into with meditation is, as I meditate, I'm like, get rid of the thoughts in my head, push them out. And that's not the point. It's about watching the thoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're saying watch the anxiety, watch the depression.
Yeah, and learn from it. It's like getting curious, because the body is constantly responding to its surroundings and trying to give us warning signs. So like pain is a signal from, the brain to a part of the body based on the information that it's gotten. So whether it is like a trauma or injury, sitting a lot, or an emotional response or something, your body, when dysfunction comes up, it's really trying to tell you something. And so when anxiety comes up or depression comes up, it's just like,
a signal.
Yeah, and it's like your shoulder hurting, and it's just
an indicator, like something's up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to just like, as much as you can, remember that and be like, okay, this is what happens sometimes. Why are you here? Do your best to work through it. But then when you have calmed down a little bit, go back and look at maybe how you got to that point. Like what was the recipe that caused that to bubble up, and start to like course correct a little bit or adjust this here and there. And you can probably pinpoint why that ended up happening,
Well, for me, I was able to say, hey, I think it's linked directly to sleep. And I don't know, Ryan has been struggling a lot with sleep recently. And those mornings where you wake up and we both have these like sleep tracker rings, and they just tell us how bad we sleep.
Right. All it tells me is that I'm gonna die a really, really tired human being.
Right.
Ryan's an anxiety ring.
my average sleep is like 65, dude. It's so bad.
You shouldn't be alive right now. No, like if I get, there are a few times we were out on tour where I would get a 65 and I feel dead. You are the most durable person I have ever met. He was eating a bowl of nails for breakfast this morning. And he came in here, just poured milk on it.
It's funny though, because it makes me sad, because I feel like, how would I be if I was getting like a 90 sleep score? I would be unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I have to get above an 80 in order to function, man. It's 0 to 100 scale, but like it heavily weighs deep sleep, REM sleep, and especially length of sleep. Yeah. And it seems to me like you really struggle with deep sleep. But in those mornings you wake up with a lack of deep sleep or whatever, you feel a noticeable difference, whether it's anger or frustration. The easiest things will frustrate you, and it does that with me too. And I think yesterday that was the problem.
Yeah, man. If I get up and I did not have a good night's sleep, like I could be making coffee and the ground spill a little bit, and I want to like throw my coffee mug through the wall, and then I have to check in with myself and be like, Ryan, buddy, I got this Mr. Rogers voice that kind of talks to me like,
that's your inner wisdom.
It really is. It's like, hey Ryan, you just didn't get good sleep. It's not that big of a deal. Like relax. Taking a lot of deep breaths like that. It's so funny how oxygen is anxiety's enemy, I feel like. Because for me, when I get to those really anxious states, like I do check in and kind of, appreciate, and I say appreciate as in like just try to understand why I'm at where I'm at.
The opposite happens to me.
But deep breaths, man, like really, really, it just helps me totally relax. Dude, if I could take 10 deep breaths, it's not like this instant magic cure, but it does help me to just take it down a notch. The other thing too, I noticed is that if I feel anxious, I will just eat a snack. And I'm not even hungry though. I just feel anxious. But then I'll eat a snack, and then like 9 times out of 10, like that's what it is. I was just hungry. I didn't even
blood sugar thing.
Yeah, I didn't even realize
babies,
it.
really.
Yeah, we are.
We need our naps. We need our snacks.
Yeah.
We need a hug.
Yes.
We're good.
That's right. Good sleep.
I found for me when I'm anxious, like yesterday, like I will catch myself when I'm not breathing at all. Like I'll just for 30 seconds at a time, I'm like. And then I realized, like, I looked at Bex yesterday at one point. I said, I'm not breathing right
Your
now.
face is blue.
What's wrong?
And I spilt a glass of water last night.
Oh, dude.
And like right as we were going to bed, and it infuriated me. But I had to do the same thing. I had to sort of check in with myself, like, hey, it's just a glass of water.
Yeah.
You can clean this up.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. It's not a problem at all. This is... It's not just fixable, but when I pan out for 5 minutes, the problem is going to be over with.
Yeah, I think the problem is like when we are in that anxious state, like maybe there is, whether it's sleep or maybe there's, something personal going on. It's like the little things bother us because for me, at least, I feel like when something little happens, like if I spill a glass of water when I'm a little bit anxious, it's like, Jesus Christ, I can't even pour a glass of water right. Like, it's like this.
Yeah. Well, and this is where self-care comes in, because if you have a regular daily practice, you have some reserves for those stressful times. So if you're constantly depleted and you're stressed out, and then something happens that it's like not taking from anything, so you don't have really a lot to like cushion or comfort yourself. And so a lot of people, you know, when they feel good, they don't really, they're just like, oh, I'm feeling good, I'm gonna just carry on with my life. But
or sometimes we also try to enhance the good, and we'll turn to things that are like bad for us, whether it's like drugs, alcohol, partying, staying up late, like whatever it is.
Kind of flips that feel good feeling,
right? In a weird way.
So it is really important to keep continually nourishing yourself, so when you have a moment or anxiety creeps in, you have something to pull from.
You have some reserves there.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've never looked at it that way. I like that.
Well, Randy, we have some questions today. We don't do interviews on our podcast. Instead, we bring some folks in occasionally that we like, and we help some folks with their questions. And our first question today is from Shaylee in Washington State.
I just wanted to know if you guys had any advice for moving on from past versions of yourself. For context, I'm figuring out who I am and who I want to be during my upcoming senior year and beyond, and I feel held back by certain expectations that I and others have for myself based on who I've been in the past. I've struggled with depression and self-harm, so feeling like I'm stuck there and can't grow and move past that is definitely weighing me down.
All right, so Randy, Shaylee says she's trying to move on from past versions of herself. And first thing I would say is congratulations on asking some of the right questions here instead of just attempting to continue to struggle through or push through it. It's a very American tendency, or maybe just a Western tendency, for us to like set aside the problems and think I'm going to just push through them. I'm going to crawl over top of them instead of going through them. And what Shaylee's trying to do right now is try to go through some of those problems. Now, she said something that was interesting to me. She said, I'm trying to figure out who I am and who I want to be. And I think we're all trying to figure out who we are and who we want to become. That's what growth is, right? Because once you get to the horizon, it's not like all of a sudden I've reached the horizon. No, there's always going to be a new horizon, at least if you're living a meaningful life. Now, the problem is, we talked to Pete Rollins about this. We did a podcast episode about love. And he differentiated pleasure from enjoyment. You know, pleasure is sort of in the moment, like experiencing of something, which can be fine and nice. But enjoyment is the broader pleasure, where it's like anticipating who we're going to become, or anticipating the activity, the vacation we're going to go on. And it's also reflecting back on the past experiences in a way that we're learning from our past self. So it seems to me like right now she says she's trying to move on from her past self, but aren't we always, we're always trying to move forward. And I think I make that distinction. So what advice do you have? What words of wisdom do you have for Shaylee?
Yeah. I think, this is a common thing that I think will come up many times in her life and in a person's life, like you said. Sure. And so I think taking the pressure off that you have to have it figured out really helps. Like, you guys know my dad, he's a wise man, and
yes, indeed.
And he retired a few years ago, and we were talking about it, and he's like, yeah, now I just gotta figure out who I am.
I love it.
And I'm just like, he's like, you never stop figuring it out. And if my dad in his 60s is still taking time to figure out who he is, like, that's actually really comforting to me, because it's like we get to keep evolving and keep getting information about what resonates with us and what doesn't. And she mentioned she went through a breakup, which is actually a really beautiful time to do self-reflection, because you can be like, okay, what did I learn from that? What did I like about it? What didn't work? What can I take with me? And what can I leave behind?
And I think that's important, because quite often we either try to leave behind everything, including the good stuff that we learned. Yeah. One of my favorite lyrics is from a band, Parlor Hawk, who you're familiar with. Randy lived in Utah for a few years.
Go Utes.
Go Utah Jazz.
Just kidding. No, Aggies. I was an Aggie. I can't say go Utes. It's sacrilegious. Anyway, carry on.
Drew.
What the hell's an Aggie?
Utah State. It's a
it Provo?
minor person.
Oh.
No, it was Logan, Utah. Utah
okay.
State. Yeah.
All right.
Drew, his line is, I learned a lot of good lessons here that I choose to forget. And that's the problem sometimes. We'll go through a relationship or a career or an event in our life, and we'll learn some lessons from it. And then a few years later, you're like, we're intentionally forgetting those because like we want to opt in for the momentary pleasure and forsake the lessons we've already learned. And sometimes we have to learn the same lesson over and over to actually figure it out before it sticks.
Yeah. You know, Shaylee, I mean, she's a senior, high school or college, I don't know. But I mean, if she's in high school, I mean, this is like her first experience or one of her first experiences with going through these changes and dealing with these feelings. So I know when I was in high school how big of a deal everything was.
Oh, man.
Like everything was such a big deal.
Yeah.
And, you know, high school kids, they do a really good job of making other high school kids' lives miserable. And, you know, I don't know if Shaylee is going through this with her peers or not, but that pressure of trying to figure out who you are, what you're going to represent to your peers in high school, I do not miss that pressure at all.
Yeah.
So,
But unfortunately, sometimes we carry that forward, right? And we still experience that same pressure as adults, right?
Yeah. I think with Shaylee, like the first thing I would say is, Shaylee, please know, and it's easier for me to say this than for her to feel this. It is, whatever you do in high school is not a big deal. Like it does, you could be walking down the hall and your pants accidentally fall down, or you forget to wear your pants to school. You show up in underwear. I hate those dreams. And like, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you know, I'm 37 years old. God, dude, I graduated 20 years ago, man.
99.
That is unbelievable. So graduated 20 years ago and nothing from high school matters. So again, my first piece of advice to Shaylee is like, please understand you're young. This is high school. Things are not as big of a deal as what we make them out to be. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to be this like perfect high school student, whether it's for your parents or whether it's for your peers. Like all you have to do is be yourself. I mean, ultimately, with the people we have in our lives, with anyone we have, whether it's a stranger, whether it's a friend, family member, we want to trust people. That's what it comes down to. And that's what's important in life. It doesn't matter if you're cool. It doesn't matter, you know, what drugs you're doing. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. Like what really matters ultimately is, can people trust you, Shaylee? And the way that you get people to trust you is you are a genuine person and you are consistent. Like that is the easiest way to gain people's trust. So Shaylee, if you are having a problem with figuring out who you want to be, I would start with figuring out what your values and beliefs are, because that is going to help light the path for the actions that you're going to take. What, episode 69, right? About
values? Yeah.
So check out that episode, podcast number 69. But from there, once you figure out what your values are, once you get clear on what your beliefs are, then from there, just be as genuine as possible and be as consistent as possible. It's funny because that whole saying, act as if, I love and I hate that saying. I love it because it really is true. Like it is, it's very similar to saying like you create your own reality.
Yeah, fake it till you make it is another way to put it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it. And I hate it because it really, I guess it undermines the importance of being a genuine person. But that when I think fake it till you make it, what I think is like, okay, I'm Ryan Nicodemus. I want to be a minimalist. I want to be a good example for people. What would that person do? Yeah, so then I start making decisions off of that. And you know what, from day one, when we were the minimalists, dude, I mean, so many people were like, oh, Ryan, you're insane. We don't know what's happened to you. You're crazy. Josh, he's going to kill himself or something. Like, you guys are nuts.
He's getting rid of all of his stuff, and that's a telltale sign of committing suicide.
Right. But 8 years later, people are like, they've come full circle. Oh my God, you guys are awesome. Like, full support. Yeah. It's unbelievable, but that's only because Josh and I have been being genuine people. We've been consistent for the last 8 years, and like that is what I guess not makes us qualified or experts, but it makes us relatable. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
I think maybe the way to append that phrase is, instead of act as if, it's act as if your future self is watching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because we are, really.
Yeah.
You look back at your past self like, why did I do
Yeah.
that?
You know what's funny?
Or I'm glad I did that.
So
Yeah.
Jordan had this interesting experience. Jordan No More had this interesting experience with Jeff Goldblum. And he was at this bar, and Jeff, he was with his buddy. He's like, "Oh, that's Jeff Goldblum over there." And his buddy's like, "Oh, let me introduce you." So he comes up, and he's Jeff Goldblum. Hey man, how's it going, man? Oh wait, look at him glasses. He takes his glasses off. He's like, "Oh man, those glasses are really cool, man."
Being Jeff Goldblum.
He's being Jeff Goldblum.
Always Jeff Goldblum.
But so I mean I think that lends itself to acting as if, or acting what your future self wants. So whether Jeff Goldblum is in front of the camera, or whether he is at a party being introduced to Jordan, like he is being himself.
Right.
So I
think maybe the other way to talk about it and to frame this in terms of self-care, Randy, is I think quite often self-care is like taking care of the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I
that's
like that a
nice.
lot. Yeah.
I'm gonna use that one.
Take care of the best version. Tweet
yeah.
that. That's awesome.
One thing I'll add too is she did mention, her depression and self-harm. And I will say, like, when I got, quote, air quotes, diagnosed with depression, it was in high school. And that was a really, I think that's a really risky time to throw that on somebody, because there's so many factors that contribute to mental health and things. But the cool thing is that what does matter in high school, and what can matter for her, whether she's in high school or college, is that she can learn some really tangible tools to take with her throughout the rest of her life. And so the good thing about my experience in high school was that putting a label on it did some harm, because I just like, okay, I'm a depressed person. I'm just going to, I literally looked up what that means and then was like, oh, I guess I'm like this,
Yeah.
So that was the dangerous part of it.
Because you're acting on, you've been told
the label.
Yeah, you're acting on the label that you've been given.
But the plus side of that was that I started going to therapy at a young age and learned some really great things to help me know myself and to know how to deal with it. And so for her, I mean, she's really wanting to be intentional about this phase of her life, which is actually pretty amazing. And she gets to really recognize, given all that she's going through, that she can even think this way is pretty amazing.
It is.
But that she can get help. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, to work with somebody that you trust and get some tools to know how to process these things in a healthy way as you move forward.
And some of those tools can include simple things like exercise, meditation.
And that is just as important as therapy.
I mean, I think one of the things that we're now finding out about depression is, well, two things. That podcast that I mentioned that we'll link to from Dr. Rhonda Patrick. The antidepressants can be really beneficial in a short term for certain people.
Yes.
And obviously I'm not a doctor, so I lean on doctors like them to guide me along. But placebo pills have a better long term effect than like Prozac or whatever the other ones are.
But with this discovery of rumination and how it creates inflammation, I mean, it's no wonder why the placebo actually does a decent job.
Right. And so actually you got to listen to that podcast. It's so good, because especially if you have suffered from sadness or depression. I'm not someone who is a depressed person, but I've had two parents. My mother was a diagnosed depressive, and she was certainly depressive. My father was manic depressive and schizophrenic. And so like there was a lot of mental illness in my family for sure. And going through that, I realized like part of it had to do because there was no thoughts of self-care. It was all unintentional self-harm, which is sort of what we do every day. Is the everyday damage of living a normal life just creates a certain amount of damage. And Shaylee's experiencing that now. And then you pile on top of that what she said. She said she feels like she's held back by expectations, her own expectations and the expectations of others,
which is super dangerous.
Well, what do you think she means by the expectations? Like, because she has been known, she's been given this label depressive. She mentioned self-harm. So do you think that she means expectations? Because people don't expect her to keep harming herself, but
No,
but because of her past actions, like people are kind of maybe raising an eyebrow,
Well,
like
social pressures
Yeah.
and being a
Society.
certain way. Yeah. And I would say my expectations of myself was probably the biggest, like the most dangerous thought pattern for myself, because there was this.
But aren't those shaped by the expectations of others? Especially
Yeah.
with you and Ryan, who grew up in like religious context. Like there's a whole other expectation there as well.
Yeah, it's many layered because human beings are beautiful that way. But I think it's like, okay, there is the expectations even of school. Like you need this assignment done, you're going to be active in this thing, that thing. And then you take that and then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to now level up. And you think that your expectations are the actual expectations. And so that's kind of where I think that danger lies.
so she needs to be careful with what she is expecting of herself.
And defining the reality in her mind with the actual reality of what is expected. Because
God, in high school, it's just those expectations we throw. I remember being in high school and the expectations I threw on myself were, I hardly met any of them.
yeah.
Like it's such a
I just let go
difficult
of them.
time.
That's how I dealt with it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just, nope.
I wish I would
have
had someone answering this question for me when I was in high school.
Seriously.
I think the thing to note for Shayla here is a few things. One is 99% of the pressure you feel is internal pressure. It's pressure you've created for yourself. There might be external pressure because there are going to be external expectations. There will be, especially parents, teachers, counselors, peers. There will be their own expectations. The important thing to note here, you just talked about letting go of expectations. You can't control other people's expectations. And there are going to be some people who don't like you. But so what? No matter what you do, they're probably not going to like you. And even if you do something that is against what your values are, then they like a person who you're not going to be anyway.
It is much better to be a genuine person and disliked rather than being a disingenuous person and being liked.
So the only set of expectations that you can control then, given those circumstances, are your own expectations.
Yeah.
And measuring those expectations, it's okay to have certain expectations, have certain hopes. Is another way to say expectation. What do you hope for your future self?
Yeah, I think hope and expectations are pretty different. I mean, because expectations are something that you are expecting to happen. It's like I hope one day that I'll have the relationship with my dad that I want, but that is certainly not my expectation.
Right. I think a hope is a type of it's a loosely held expectation.
Yeah.
And I think the difference that I like to focus on is like what is the standard? What am I going to do today that's going to make my future self proud?
Amen.
And so that might mean meditation, sort of self-care rituals. So when we walk out of this question here with Shaylee, what are some things that she can do? What's some sort of actionable things that she can do to take better care of herself?
I think instead of being so committed to what everybody else is going to think, like try to transform that commitment to yourself and really using this as an opportunity to get to know yourself really well. And that could be through journaling, that could be through professional help, that could be through, your daily rituals or whatever. But it's really, again, embracing these parts of you that you wish weren't there, asking what can you learn from them? And what can you take with you as you move forward, and let go of being like, okay, it's my senior year, I'm going to be this person, or like come Monday morning, I'm going to be this person,
Right. And
just
that's who I'm going to be for the rest of eternity.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just being like,
That's a bad expectation.
what am I really being present, and what am I feeling right now? What am I learning right now? And then just relaxing a little bit and know that you're just going to live your life and you're going to be how you are.
Yeah, dude, this is like a really long-winded way of talking about lowering expectations and raising standards.
Yeah.
So Shaylee needs to lower her expectations, meaning
And forget others' expectations.
yes, and let other people's expectations go. But she needs to raise her standards, and the way you can raise your standard, it's by meditating, it's by exercising, it is by doing these self-care things that helps us have reserves. So when we do feel depressed or we have down times, that we're not completely drained. But yeah, man, I don't know what to say to Shaylee to just help her understand. Like, it's high school doesn't mean shit. Like, you know what? The cool kids in high school, like the ones that I was so worried about impressing, like they are losers now. And no offense to any of them, but like,
or if they're still cool now, it's because they were never infected by the tyranny of cool.
Yeah, it's not every single cool person in high school, but a lot of the people I looked up to, like now I look at them and I'm like, oh, like you're still in high school.
Yeah.
I think focusing on, not that high school doesn't mean anything, because at the moment, like, because it does, but it's like, what does this period of life actually mean?
I like that better.
And
yeah,
then
that is much better approach.
really cling to that and then zoom out and know that this other stuff means shit.
Yeah,
you know?
because, okay, so, yeah.
And then move forward, from what you can gain from it. Because every season of life has really important lessons.
That's a good point.
So
it's not that it doesn't mean anything as much as you have to be very deliberate with the meaning, Shaylee, that you're placing on your high school time or whatever, like that. Yeah. Again, easier said than done. But yeah, I mean, I think right now, so what are the important things with high school? It's maybe she wants to go to college, like getting good grades, I guess. Like what are the important takeaways from the high school experience?
Having fun.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. So Shaylee, rule number 1, have fun in high school.
And not stressing out about things that you actually will need to be more mindful of later. But just nurturing friendships that could carry on with you and having fun, going to a dance, and just like I think that's the one thing when I look back on my high school experience, I was so busy focusing on my depression that I didn't realize how much fun I was having. And when I look back on high school, I actually enjoyed it because I was a theater nerd and, we do whatever we want.
Right.
But I couldn't enjoy it in the moment because I was so focused on everything that was wrong with me, or if this boy liked me, or if I was keeping up with this person or what I wasn't being included in. Yeah. And I really didn't realize that. And I think I have versions of that of every phase of my life. And that's kind of why I'm really trying to just enjoy as much as I can now. But I think that season of life is to learn and to have fun.
Yeah.
As much as you can.
I'm going to leave Shaylee with a few things to take care of yourself. One thing that I've started doing recently, I guess you could call my own self-care rituals. Every week there's a list of like 12 things that I make sure I do at least twice a week. Yeah. And I stopped it was changing my own expectation, because a lot of these things I'm like, I want to do these every single day. And it was reframing my own expectations. And so there's an essay on our website called The Rule of Two. And basically it's doing some self-care things twice a week that are going to make me a better version of myself. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. I'll just go through a few of these. But some of it's like, it's the free medicine of life that we just don't even think about. Going out in the sun for at least an hour. Even if you live somewhere like, where's she from? Washington, which is going to be cold in the winter and gray, right? But going out in the sun is something that is important. Even when it's gray, there is a different experience you're going to have than if you're just stuck under the sort of fluorescent cubicles lights or the high school lights. Spending time outside in the sun is something I make sure I do. Now, thankfully, we live in LA, and so it's an easy thing for us to do here. But even in Fargo, when it's negative 40 degrees...
We still have sun.
Yes, you do.
Just bundle up. There's no bad weather, just bad gear. So you bundle up and get out of there.
Writing.
Fargo, there's no bad weather, just bad gear.
Writing is something I like to do pretty close to every day, but as long as I do it 2 times a week, I give myself permission to feel really good. I tend to do it 5 or 6 days a week, but there are some weeks where it might just happen twice. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I know it happened only twice. And I have this is literally just a checklist that goes on my phone. I printed it out right from my phone.
That list is stressing me out.
But not him, and that's a really cool thing to notice about self-care.
Oh, yeah.
Is that it's very personal.
Is that everyone has their own preferences.
Yeah, and so reading a couple times a week. I tend to read usually in the morning, sometimes at night before bed. But again, it's something I do more than twice a week usually. And so for me, I'm doing all of these things anyway, and it's a way for me to say, okay, am I taking care of myself? But it's also an area for me to realize, where am I deficient? Because all these things are happening anyway. And so at the end of the day, I get to go and say, oh yeah, I did this, and this. Doing the sauna twice a week. I usually go 3, sometimes 4 times a week. But but doing the sauna at least twice a week. I did it last night, and like I get to check it off my list. I'm doing it anyway, right? Stretching or some sort of yoga or physical therapy twice a week. Squats, push-ups, pull-ups, like just body weight exercises, cycling, meditation. That's my big struggle because it feels so anti-productive.
You just need to learn more about it and learn what your brain's doing.
Right, and I think that's the thing whereas these other things, like you're doing something, and meditation is the not doing something that is the action. So making sure I do that at least twice a week. I'd like to do it ideally every day, but doing that twice a week. Getting out and walking for a couple hours, again, that's something I do most days, almost every day.
It's amazing how a good walk can make you feel better.
A nice brisk walk, or if I'm really feeling anxious, like going to the sauna, it's changing your state. And so in the short term, a bunch of these short-term changes lead to long-term change as well. And I think for Shaylee, it's important to realize, like, changing your body, especially if you're feeling sadness or depression, one of the best things you can do to refocus that anxiety is get some exercise in there. Change what you're doing with your physiology. That will change your brain.
Absolutely. How many things you got on the list there?
There's 12.
There's just 12?
Well, I do each one twice.
Oh, I see.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that like just cut the stress in half of that list for me. But what I was gonna say is for Shaylee, if she can take on 12 things right now, she can write down a list of 12 or 20. And she feels like she can commit to that. That's awesome. But it might just start with meditation.
Yeah, I'm saying
Yeah.
It might just start with a little bit of a healthier diet, little exercise.
Yeah, well, and you have your go-to thing that you choose from. I always tell people, because I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring with people, and start with something that's super doable and enjoyable and almost laughable that you would put it on a list. So like going out in the sun, right? It's like, why would I put that on my calendar?
That's literally the first thing on the list, right?
but that's where you start. Like, it's gonna sound silly, but that it's, a lot of pain and things that have developed come from these small and simple acts that we do over time. And so I think one of the best ways to counter that is through small and simple acts.
Yeah.
And so it's
that.
like, okay, I'm gonna put it on my calendar of going out in the sun, and if it feels silly but really fun, then you're on the right track of where to start, and that will evolve naturally.
Dude, think about coffee. From the beans that are picked, the region that they come from, the elevation, the temperature, the way that the beans were transported, then they get roasted. Then you have certain filter, you have a certain method, you have a certain size grind, you have a certain water temperature, you have timing, you have all these measurements. It's like all of these little things add up to where, like, you're drinking a cup of coffee and it becomes this amazing, not this cup of coffee, this coffee sucks, but it becomes this, I'm just kidding. It doesn't suck, but it's no Bandit coffee, which you can get at Bandit Coffee Company. But no, seriously, it's like, it's very similar to what you're talking about. It's like, we do think about, like, yeah, going out in the sun, what's that really going to do? You know what? Going out in the sun, one thing, yeah, it's not this magic pill, but going out in the sun and going on a walk and doing a little bit of meditation or some breathing exercises, like, then you're starting to add up, and it actually is making this huge difference.
The best self-care, I feel like, is it's not something to add to your to-do list. It's integrated into how you're living. So it's like, okay, instead of getting in the car, I'm going to leave a little bit more early and walk to wherever I'm going. Or when you're working at your desk, I talk a lot about desk working, and it's like, okay, on my phone call, I'm going to stand up and move around instead of just sit on the phone call. So it's like, a lot of people tell me, like, oh, self-care stresses me out, or I'm too overwhelmed. And it's when you can really integrate it into how you're already operating, that's when the magic happens, really.
I love it.
I think for me, the reason this list was so helpful, these are things I'm already doing.
Yeah.
But I've found some, like, definite holes where I'm like, oh, I'm not meditating as much as I think I am.
Like, it helps you be consistent with these things.
Yeah, and it makes me realize, like, and I don't have to beat myself up over it. I just say, oh, well, you know what? I've only done the sauna once this week, and it's the end of the week. Why don't I just hop in the sauna?
Yeah.
And as opposed to having 24 things on a list. For me, it's like I've already done these things, and it's a way for me to say, okay, like these are it's the free medicine that's going to make me a better version of myself.
Yeah, it's like if I skip the chiropractor for a month or two, like all of a sudden I started getting this neck pain and back pain, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I haven't been to the chiropractor in 2 months. And then I go and get adjusted, and it helps me out. But yeah, it is a great idea, man. Like these things that we do in our daily lives, but sometimes we just slip for one reason or another. And this is a great reminder.
I think ultimately what we're talking about here, if you're listening to this and you're turned off by the term self-care, for me, what I've realized is like it's really just redefining what success is. We talked about trying to eliminate other people's expectations, because right now, quite often our version of success, I know throughout my entire 20s, my version of success was predicated on what other people thought successful was. It was the luxury cars, it was the house in the suburbs, it was the job title. And so redefining success is important. So Shaylee, I'd love to send you a copy of our book, Essential. There's an entire chapter about success in here. Which camera, Jordan? This one? Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see our book, Essential. Ryan and I wrote this book. It's 150 different essays about intentional living, 12 different chapters, 12 different areas of intentional living, and one of those is about success, or really redefining what success is for you. So, Sean, if you could reach out to Shaylee, send her the audiobook version. If you like our podcast, you'll love the audiobook version of Essential, or if you want the book, or the ebook, we're happy to send those to you as well. Our next question is from Jeff in Los Angeles.
I have a running shoe store, but we do a lot of foot wellness, and I see your thing here on Facebook about self-care, and I was just hoping you guys would cover something about foot care as well, and how that partakes to self-care, because feet are our foundation.
All right, we're going to skip over Ryan Tenderfoot Nicodemus here to get Randy to answer the question.
I could definitely use some tips on foot care.
Ryan is the most durable person, but his Achilles heel is literally his Achilles heel. Actually,
I'll tell you the best advice I ever got when it comes to, maybe it's just posture in general, but it had to do with my feet. We were in Dublin. It was 2014, and this dude came. It was you remember Eric, the game changer, the young kid that was there?
No.
You don't remember that young? That was like anyway. So
hi, Eric.
Yeah. Hey, Eric. What's up, man? So his parents were there. His dad came up to me. He's like, I am like an expert with posture. And he's like, your feet. He's like, they're too far apart, and they're gated. Mm-hmm. He's like, you need to bring in your gait, and you need to balance on your feet. And it's funny because that has stuck with me. And during talks, I actually find myself, and that's kind of an American thing to like lean on one side.
Yeah.
Like that's a very American posture thing. I have found by focusing on grounding myself and having balance on my feet, like it helps me give a talk better, helps me pay more attention. It is unbelievable, like how your feet can really make a difference with your health. Yeah. That's all I got on feet, ladies and gentlemen.
So Randy, I was really hoping to bring you on the podcast to talk about your feet at some point in time. So now you're here. I'll tell you this: the last scene of our documentary, Minimalism. Ryan and I have the same weird gait, even though we are shaped completely differently. And like I have ridiculously long legs.
I learned it from you, Dad.
But at the last scene of our documentary, like I cringe every time I see it because it's us walking away from the camera. We're walking like ducks. But I had to start going to about 3 years ago. I started going to a physical therapist, and they retaught me how to walk correctly. Mm-hmm. And it has totally changed the way that I walk now, and it's fixed a lot of my back problems. Egoscue therapy was something that was important because I was walking like a duck and like
quack quack.
and what I've learned over the last 3 years, and I have to still pay attention to it, but like I had to fix my gait. And I think back to the reason this question was interesting, and I picked it, is he said something about the feet being the foundation, and I had 5 surgeries on my right foot. Well, it was my right big toe specifically when I was 24 and 25. I had this terrible ingrown toenail that kept growing back in, and so eventually they had to take half the toenail off and kill all the roots, and it's literally the worst pain I've ever experienced.
I was gonna say I've never seen you go through so much pain.
It was 10 out of 10
on a regular basis.
Unbelievable pain.
Yeah.
To the point where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this next second.
Yeah.
It was that level of pain. And it truly like ruined a period of my life, because like when you can't when you can't walk, you feel like you feel like your life has changed. This thing that we take for granted every day.
Yeah, it has changed. I mean,
and it took a while to fix that, and thankfully it's fixed. And I try to take good care of my feet now. But it really is the foundation. So Jeff's asking because he runs a running shoe store, but I don't know. I find that, like, for me, there are all these things that we take for granted, and I'm sure you see this right now, Randy, with a lot of clients that you work with. There are things they take for granted. Because it's funny, Jordan was asking me yesterday, she's like, so what does Randy do? And I'm like, uh-oh, how do I explain this?
How do you explain it, Joshua?
I don't. I just throw my hands up. I'm like, I don't know. What does she do? She lives in Fargo.
Yeah.
She does things.
She drinks water. She wears blue jeans.
You've been to my studio. You know more of what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
well,
got a Thai massage. That was good.
And then that's one of the first things I said is, like, she specializes in Thai massage. She has a self-care podcast. You can find her at naturallyrandykay.com.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we had to take a quick break there. But we're back. But I do have trouble sort of explaining what you do, because you are a woman of many hats. And
how many hats do you own?
27.
Minimalist.
I'm just kidding.
27. It's the perfect amount of hats.
Yeah.
but I'm sure you deal with a lot of people who actually have foot problems when you're dealing with Thai massage stuff.
Yeah. I mean, to clarify what I do, so I've been a body worker and yoga teacher for over 10 years. And so most of my daily work is doing massage and yoga and helping people with pain. And then I do some online stuff like the podcast and some online courses about self-care and taking care of yourself in general.
Is there a foot course?
I do have a blog a long time ago about feet. It was a 2-part thing about feet.
That was something different.
Yeah. Stop.
You're real mature.
But I actually do have a lot to say about feet. And this is a tricky question for me, because I feel like we could have a whole podcast about feet. Because
This is
there's
going to be the trailer for the
no,
We could do a whole podcast about feet.
we could. But I would say the thing to remember is that the body works as a whole. And sometimes we get really hyper focused on one area that's causing us pain, and we forget to look at all the other reasons it could be in pain and in dysfunction. And especially with the feet, a lot of foot pain, or people think they have plantar fasciitis, but it's actually referral pain from the calves. And so if you work on the calves, it helps release the tension in the feet. And so it is really important to focus on the area of pain and modify some things and work on alignment. The style of yoga I'm trained in and I teach is all alignment based. So it's building something from the ground up, whether it is your feet or you're sitting or something like that. It's making sure you have a balanced foundation. But if you have like tight hips, for example, that's going to make your feet go outward. And so it's like you can, add all the support you can or change your shoes. But if your hips are super tight, that's not really going to help with the problem. So it's really, again, and this applies to all types of healing, it's noticing what's screaming the loudest, nurturing it, but then also zooming out and seeing how can I address this whole issue, like from a whole body perspective.
I used to have really crazy tender feet as well, and it was mainly because my shins were so tight. It wasn't my calves are right there next to my shins. You know this. But
Wow.
they were so bad that like I had some Rolfing done. And talk about pain. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
Dude,
talk about relief. And not only did it help my feet, it helped my gait, it helped and it was like long, for those of you who don't know what Rolfing is, it's basically just really, really, really deep tissue massage.
it's pain.
Yes.
Think of painful massage.
Well, but the philosophy of it is more like structural integration.
Yeah,
So-
and but it is painful.
Yeah.
And
like how long? what kind of increments did you do rolfing in? Because you can't just go an hour straight.
No, maybe 15, 20 minutes, but like
Wow.
I had bruises for a week.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's 15, 20 minutes, and then do you take like a 5-10 minute break and then get back to it? Or is it just you do 15 and 20 minute sessions?
Yeah.
Wow.
And in fact, I will have Bex do it occasionally now where her hands aren't strong enough for the amount of pain that I can tolerate, so I'll have her use her elbow on my shins, and she'll leave bruises as well. But like for me, it was just that. It wasn't just like where's the pain. It's when I pan out, I realized that, man, it's all interconnected. You know, my back pain had a lot to do with my shins, and my back pain had a lot to do with other areas of my body that wasn't just my back. And I was a couple weeks out a few years ago from having back surgery, and until I discovered Egoscue therapy, and it was learning to walk again was part of fixing my back pain. Learning just simple weird exercises with my arms that, you know, obviously your shoulders are connected to your lower back, which is it's all there, but we treat our body parts as if they're all standing in different rooms. If you could just take care of my feet, great. And that could be a good short-term thing, like to go get a nice back massage, get your shoulders rubbed, like that feels good, but that's not necessarily going to correct the problem. We have to go down to we need to go down a few layers and figure out what behaviors do I need to change, do I need to correct in order for me to alleviate some of this pain.
Yeah, it's funny, like the chain, like the chain of events. Like my lower back hurt, went to the massage therapist. Meryl was like, "Oh, your thighs are tight. Your thighs are tight because your calves are tight. Your calves are tight because your feet are tight." And then, you know, it's just one thing after another, and it seems to like link back to the feet at a certain point.
And for me, it also linked back to inflammation. So when I was over the last couple of years dealing with a lot of these problems that I've had health-wise, I was overly inflamed, and I've had to do this summer I did a long-term fast and then changed my diet considerably to a fast mimicking diet for a couple months, and reduced my inflammation so much that I didn't realize how inflamed I was because I was just living with it forever. Sometimes we have that pain, and until it reaches panic level, we're just like, oh, I guess I'll deal with it. I guess this is how life is now.
Yeah, and that's like the good and bad thing about healing is that you are getting rid of kind of that numbness and that tolerance, so you become more sensitive to your pain. Like my neck hurts a lot more now than it did before, because I have a healthier neck. So I can notice when things are off. Right. So and there is something called the healing crisis where you, like, for example, with hips and low back, like your body is trying to protect itself. It's always trying to balance the tension throughout your body. And so when it doesn't feel safe, it'll like add tightness here, so this
seizes up a little
bit. And so when you start loosening that up, it can feel really unstable, and you could be like, oh, my low back actually is hurting a little bit more now, but it's like, oh, well, we're actually kind of rerouting the things, so sometimes you do feel a little bit worse before you feel better. And it's just constantly tuning into yourself and recognizing when, you know, something really isn't going well, or when you're just kind of working through something. But again, it is looking at the body as a whole is probably the most important part of healing pain.
Well, that overcompensating is important too. I know for me, like my TFL was especially tight, and
your tensor fascia lata.
Yes, look at you, fancy lady.
God, this podcast is so above my head.
And also, like my glute med and glute min were so tight because my psoas was so weak and tight, and so it was overcompensating with these other muscles. They were doing way more work than they were supposed to. Now, a lot of that had to do is because I used to sit down for 8 to 10 hours a day, and I couldn't do a single squat. Like, in fact, I couldn't do a bridge because I remember the first time I was going to physical therapy. He's like, all right, now he was showing me how to do a bridge, and he's like, now turn your glutes on. And I'm like, what?
Come on, baby.
Yeah, they didn't
on, baby,
work. And so he had to give me like these modified
What is a bridge?
bridges.
Is that like a plank?
No, it's when you lay on your back, but you like sort of thrust your pelvis up in the air.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, to
Thrust
create.
is the key.
Thrust.
Pose.
Yes.
Am I doing this wrong? All right, Jeff, I'd love to send you a copy of our book, Everything That Remains. There's an entire chapter on feet in here.
Wait a minute. Did you? Is this an appended version?
Yeah, this is the new updated version.
Minimalism and feet.
Yeah, no, actually, there is I mean, the book is basically about reestablishing our foundation, and so the thing he talked about is our feet are our foundation. So using that as a metaphor, the thing, I mean, it's my favorite thing that we've ever written. And it's this 5-year journey of us going from these suit and tie corporate guys to becoming minimalists. But in order to do so, we had to really reset our own expectations of our life, what the societal pressure was. As you said, we were leaving the corporate world, Ryan. People were like, "What? You're crazy." In fact, people didn't believe me, Randy, when I first quit. Well, the first thing I did when I quit, I told my boss, and he was like, "You can't quit.
You're not allowed to."
And there was this level of panic that I felt momentarily, like, oh my God, I didn't realize he was able to tell me I couldn't quit.
I can't?
I'm not allowed to quit.
Is that illegal? I didn't realize that.
This is, and ultimately, I had to redefine what success was like for me. I had to redefine what my expectations were, because I realized they couldn't be predicated on someone else's expectations.
So people came up to you and they're like, "Dude, where are you really going?"
Yeah, they're like, "Are you going to AT&T?"
Yeah, so you're going to Verizon, right?
And can you take me with you? I'm like, "Oh, you think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, but it's the same grass. They just put a fence up here."
Right.
It's the same exact grass. No, I'm not going anywhere. And so I had to reestablish, and Ryan had to reestablish a foundation in our lives. And so using that foot as a metaphor, it is a foundation, but you need something to stand on in life. So
yeah.
Jeff, I'd love to send you a copy of Everything That Remains, either the audiobook, the book, or the ebook version of that. I apologize, there is not a foot chapter in there, though. All right, y'all, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
There are footnotes, though.
They're endnotes.
It's technical.
We'd love to hear what you have to say, so if you have a comment or tip about feet or self-care, including advice for any of our callers today, leave us a voicemail, 406-219-7839. You can also email a voice memo to podcast@theminimalists.com. We'll air our favorite comments and tips on a future episode. And stay tuned to the end of this week's episode for this week's listener comments and tips. Ryan, what time is it?
You know what time it is? It is time for our lightning round.
Yes, it is.
Where we answer questions from social media.
We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @theminimalists. And Randi Kay is, where are you at on Instagram?
Naturally Randi Kay.
@naturally Randi Kay.
Randy with an I.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. @naturally Randi Kay on Instagram to find her. We're at The Minimalists on all those platforms. During the lightning round, this is where Ryan and I, and now Randy, we each do our best to answer every question with just a short, shareable, less than 140 character response. Now, don't worry, Randy, we actually monder on a bit as well.
Okay.
But we tie it up with a pithy bow.
Got it.
You can copy and paste our pithy answers on social media if you like. You can find all of our quotes now in one place, minimalmaxims.com.
It's so funny, dude. On Twitter, when I see people, they'll quote me, and I'll read it, and I'm like, did I say that? Man, that is good.
Did Jessica edit that?
Yeah, I think that's what it is I'll say something, and then Jess edits it.
I think
Yeah.
Makes
Sean
it
edits
pretty.
it first and puts it in the show notes. All the minimal maxims are in the show notes, but then Jess edits it again and puts it on minimalmaxims.com.
Jess, Sean, thank you for your excellent editing to make me sound smart. Man, me words really good.
All right, our first lightning round question is from
Our first lightning round question is from Alexa.
Alexa, kill Ryan Nicodemus.
Calling Ryan Nicodemus.
Stop it.
How do you practice self-care without feeling selfish?
Aha. Well, here's my pithy answer, and then maybe we can talk about it a little bit, Randy. My pithy answer is self-care and selfish reside on opposite sides of our values. I tend to look at I look at operating in one's own self-interest, which is self-care, is different from selfish, which is operating to the detriment of other people.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate selfishness from self-care?
Well, I
Randi
like
Kay.
to use the brushing your teeth metaphor. So,
Never heard of this.
Okay.
What is it?
it's where you brush your teeth.
Never heard of it.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
It's not on my list.
This
My
explains
checklist
a
does
lot.
Not have brushing
Okay.
teeth on
This explains a lot.
You only do it twice a week.
Yeah. No, okay, brushing your teeth is
Yes.
something you do every day, and you benefit from it, and the people around you benefit from it, right? And so, do you feel guilty for brushing your teeth? Do you feel like you're being selfish? This is really a new, like a great way of approaching these acts of self-care is it's something that you need to do to benefit yourself, and it benefits those around you. And you can't fill from an empty cup, right? So, so I say my pithy answer is self-care is a daily brushing of the mind, body, and soul.
Boom!
Oh my goodness!
How dare you come on here and outshine us?
Bleep that out, Sean. Make her pithy answer say we could do a whole podcast about feet.
Yeah. Hey, I'll own that. I will own that.
Oh man.
How about you, Ryan?
My pithy answer is to give your best to others. You must first give your best to yourself. And just to Josh's point, self-care, it only becomes selfish when it is a detriment to others. That's what you need to look at. If you are doing something for yourself and it's making someone else miserable, then maybe you want to look at that and be like, am I being selfish right now? But sometimes here's kind of the tricky part, right? Sometimes the self-care that we do, it does piss other people off. And
that's their expectation. They have poor expectations.
So we've got to be able to differentiate when someone has a poor expectation or if we're the ones that have a poor expectation. So that's, again, easier said than done, like most of the stuff we talk about. But the more you practice it, the better you get at it, for sure.
Well, and the interesting thing about that too is sometimes self-care is a really, really hard decision. Like the more you develop a relationship with yourself, and I call it your inner wisdom, it can sometimes guide you down paths that are really hard. So it could be, getting a divorce, moving to a new place. That's also self-care. So we have to be ready to maybe make some tough calls sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think quite often the expectation thing can be so tricky because we don't want to let other people down.
Right.
But if I'm fulfilling other people's expectations by letting myself down, that's why I have that list of my own sort of self-care. These are all individual acts.
That's
right?
a really good point. So if you are meeting people's expectations, but it's letting yourself down, like that's a problem.
Right. And in a weird way, that's an involuted kind of selfishness when we're operating only on the behalf of others.
Dude, I was trying to come up with a pithy answer, something similar to that, because it's selfish to not take care of yourself in a way. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah. In a weird way, it's pacifying others by forsaking the things that are most important to you.
Right.
And it's easy to do that because we get this little dopamine rush when we please other people, and we all are people pleasers to a certain extent. But I've realized that, I mean, you guys both know, so for those of you who don't know Randy and Ryan, they're the same person, actually. It's the first time I've ever I've only seen them in the same room once, and it's right now. I'm actually shocked you're not the same person. But they have the same personality and identical personalities and same sense of humor, and what I don't know what's going on right now.
We're just connecting. I'm just alone.
They were doing like the ET finger.
No, I was double tapping her.
Oh, you like her?
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah.
I was softly caressing.
You were softly caressing my hand. I like that.
All right,
Keep going. We're the same
wait,
person.
okay,
What were you going to say there? We're the
Well,
same person.
I was just gonna say that I don't know where I was going with that, honestly. Our next question is from Jenny.
All right, so we're moving on to our next question. Jenny wants to know, how do I draw and maintain boundaries about what I need for self-care when others around me are adept at asking for what they need, and my tendency is to give more than I receive, resulting in me feeling resentful toward them.
All right, well, here's my pithy answer. A life without boundaries is the most bound life.
Yeah.
I think that's also ultimately what I was getting at with that previous question there is, in a weird way, I think about Ella, our 5-year-old. If we were to let her do whatever she wants, whenever she wants to do it, that's what we think of as freedom. But that's not real freedom. That's a particular kind of tyranny. Being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. Mm-hmm. You can go play in traffic, Ella. Just have fun.
Right.
No, you're putting up a different kind of bounds.
That's interesting, man. It's like removing like the boundaries of like every human day existence. It just makes you aware of like, yeah, you're right. Like you're just aware of these boundaries that you'll never be able to reach.
Removing the boundaries of discipline also removes your freedom. And the Jocko Willink book is Discipline Equals Freedom. And ultimately that's where we have to go if we want to be free. It has to do with inserting a particular kind of discipline in our lives, and the more discipline we have, the freer we're going to feel, the more accomplished we're going to feel. Now, Jenny is talking about other people's expectations and giving more than she receives, and for me, like I have to look at and say, what are the boundaries so that I can give myself what I need, right? Because without those boundaries, it's back to the Ella analogy, ultimately you'll fall off a cliff, or you'll go get hit in traffic if you're playing in traffic, right? And so you do need some sort of boundary if you want to experience freedom. But with too many boundaries, that's also a problem, right? If you're in prison literally, then you have these boundaries that you can't escape. And so I think it really has to do with the balance with our boundaries. Now, she also talks about resentment, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
And I would argue that resentment isn't a problem. Resentment is a sign that something needs to change so that you don't build resentment.
Yeah.
The building of resentment is a problem.
Yes.
If you resent something, it is a signal. It is an indicator that, something needs to change here, because if I keep doing this, then there's going to be a problem.
Randy, what's your...
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with my pithy answer is if giving doesn't fill you up, then it isn't truly giving.
Ooh.
So one thing that I was just in Peru, and Peruvians are amazing people and really happy. And I was just like, I asked one of them, like, why are you so happy? And there was a long answer, but the gist of it was their culture is a giving culture, and you give first and you share first before you take, and there's a lot of joy in giving and sharing. And that was a really beautiful reminder for me, because a lot of times it's like, okay, what do I need? What intentions do I want to put out there? Me, but we don't really think about how to truly give in a joyful way. And so if you're giving a lot, and a lot of people take a lot of pride in how much they give, how much they serve, but they're totally breaking, and they don't really enjoy, I got to go do this for this person and this for this person. Yeah. And that it's actually draining them. I don't believe that's truly giving, because giving is a two-way street.
I totally agree. Well, this kind of goes back to Alexa's question too, that same thing can apply there. It's like, if you're not taking care of yourself and you're just taking care of others, and it's to your own detriment, like that's a problem. Yeah.
And I like what you said about resentment being a warning signal, because we do get afraid of that. And
it's like the check engine light in your car isn't the problem.
It's like ding ding.
Right.
The problem is something else.
But it's taking the time to realize that that's actually going on as well. And
otherwise the resentment builds up.
Yeah.
And that is a huge problem. Just like the check engine light comes on, you're like, well, I'll just put a piece of black tape over it, and that way I don't see the check engine light anymore. That's what we do in our daily lives, I feel like.
Yeah. Absolutely. My pithy answer is this: if you keep setting yourself up for resentment, you're really going to resent that.
I love it.
That's a good one.
So really, saying no, this is a huge part of self-care.
Yeah.
Being able to say no. No, last night I was supposed to go to a haunted hayride with Josh and Bex. Yes, Mariah and I were going to join. We were going to continue our tradition of spooky, scary stuff in Spooktober. But last night, I've just been getting horrible sleep. We recorded a podcast yesterday. I knew I needed to record a podcast today, and I'm like, I have to take something off my plate right now. Yeah. And I wanted to work out. I wanted to ride the bike, and I was like, I'm not going to forsake my exercise just to go on a haunted hayride. So I had to tell Josh, hey dude, like I'm not gonna be able to make it. I need to get a good night's sleep. And what do you think Josh did? Was he like, how dare you cancel on me the same day? We're not friends anymore.
In a passive aggressive way.
Oh, how Midwest of you.
No, Josh was very supportive because he's my friend, and he wants me to take care of myself.
And I think that's the key. A couple of things there is you are really clear on what your needs are and what your main priorities are. And the other thing is that you have communicated properly with the people in your life on what those needs are. And so when you say something like that, he totally trusts that is what you need, and it's not personal and it's nothing like that. And so that's part of the thing too, is you getting clear with yourself, but you also need to have really clear conversations with the people that you operate with so they can be on the same page, because most of the people in your life do love you and care for you, and when they really know where this is coming from, they're going to be understanding and supportive. But when you keep it all in and then you get mad at somebody for not understanding you,
like there's a problem there.
And so you have to take it on yourself to educate the people around you about what you're changing and what your needs are, so they can get on board and even like join you in their own way. Like a lot of people with families I work with, it's like, let's have self-care time, or there's an hour in a day where mom's gonna do this and the kids get to do something that they enjoy, and it can turn into like the culture of the home, instead of like, I'm taking the time, nobody cares about what I need,
Right. Well,
and so
I think when you were telling someone no, whether it's a friend who does, and you set the right expectations, so friends are gonna they're gonna understand because of the expectations you set up with them. Like with Josh and I, like he totally, like you said, he understood, like, yes, like I need a good night of sleep. He knows I haven't been sleeping well, so he's gonna support me because he's my friend and he wants me to be happy. But even with strangers, I guess, or an acquaintance that you want to say no to, don't just say no. Like tell them what you're saying yes to. Like
instead, explain to them what like the no is, or like, well, I'm actually doing this right now, but maybe at a later time, or whatever. There's definitely an art form of saying no. Absolutely. But also saying yes can be an important act of self-care as well. Yeah. So
like, so what do you mean by that? Give me an example.
For example, I'll come back to your example of getting sunshine. Like there's been times, especially in Fargo, when it is super cold and you've done your work day and you get home and you just want to snuggle and do nothing. And sometimes that's great, but if you do that every day, it's not. And somebody will invite me to something that I would actually like, but I'm too lazy or I'm just like comatose state survival. And it's like, nah, I'm going to say yes to that because that's actually something that'll fill me up. So I yes is getting a bad rap right now. But there's also time and place for that too.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Randy, thank you so much for being here and like putting up with my antics and Josh's antics.
I'm used to it.
We really appreciate it. We have one more question if you want to like hang out.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yes, we have one more question, and I'm looking forward to arguing with both of you about this.
Oh boy.
How do you practice self-care when you have so much empathy?
Empathy? What's that?
All right, so if you'd like to hear our answer to that question, you want to hear me argue with Randy and Ryan, who are both very empathetic people. I'm going to present the case against empathy.
It's not that Josh is apathetic; he just doesn't know how to feel. So
he just doesn't
have feels.
Like
his
heart's really just black.
No, that's not true.
No, I just don't have a heart.
No, it's a regular heart. It's just really
cold.
cold.
I feel anxiety when there's coffee running down the side of Ryan's cup.
Yes.
That's what I feel. I have no empathy for him, though.
But for the coffee, maybe.
But we're going to talk about empathy and the problem with empathy. And if you'd like to hear our answer to that question, you can listen to this week's postscript episode over at the Minimalist private podcast, available exclusively to our Patreon supporters. So if you want to support our show and keep this podcast 100% advertisement free, then head on over to theminimalists.com/support. In addition to our weekly postscript episodes, the Minimalist private podcast feed includes our Ask the Minimalist Anything episodes. We just recorded one of those yesterday. It was really good. Unreleased recordings of our live events. We've done 15 live events for our Patreon supporters in the last year. You can find all of those on the Minimalist private podcast feed. and also the entire back catalog of our past private episodes. We've done over 80 at this point. Once you become a supporter, you'll also receive a personal link to our private podcast feed so that it plays in your normal podcast player. You can find all the details and all the good stuff over at theminimalists.com/support. And here is a snippet from this week's Postscript episode. Here's the case against empathy, put plainly in an analogy, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want your doctor to have empathy. If he's getting ready to operate on you, you don't want him to literally have empathy. If well, we were just talking about foot care, right? Your foot is, my toe was so messed up, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't want him to literally feel the pain in my toe.
Yeah, of course not.
I wanted him to have compassion for me. And so the case against empathy is really a case for compassion.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I think when we experience too much empathy, and this is what M is saying here, she's relating to everyone else's pain, and she is therefore feeling their pain. And how can you take care of yourself when you're feeling everyone else's pain? Okay, now it's time for our added value portion of the show. This is where we talk about something that has added value to our lives recently. Ryan, what has been adding value to your life?
Well, I want to bring Jordan on here with his beautiful costume.
Come on out.
Come on out, Jordan. Look at this.
We're recording this on Halloween day.
Yeah. Where's this going to come through the... Yes, pull the... This is like one of the best. It's such a simple costume, but this is like one of the best Hunter S. Thompson outfits I've seen. Yes. And you know what I love about this, dude? Is even your tattoo is like it's a Hunter S.
Yeah, it's on purpose.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, dude.
That's a bat from,
Yeah. From dude, it's funny after you explained to me your tattoo, I went and watched Fear and Loathing. And I forgot how much I freaking love that movie. It's so good. So I recommend Fear and Loathing. If you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. No, we were just talking about before this podcast started. Mariah put on this show last night called Superstore. Freaking hilarious, man. It is so funny. But what I specifically liked about it, we watched 2 episodes.
It's a parody of Walmart, basically.
Right. It's a parody of Walmart. It's a superstore, and it's about the employees and the management at the superstore, and it's such a good parody. It's
like
done
The
so well.
Office meets Walmart.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, in a way. It's not because it's not like a mockumentary.
Right.
But yeah, in a way, it is kind of like that. But the reason
humor like that.
The reason why I like this show is because it did such a good job on this one particular episode where they wanted to hand out free samples of this salsa. And the manager, he was like, I'm just going to pick someone random to hand out samples, and he picks this person out. And she's like, is it because I'm Latina? Is that why you're picking me to hand out the salsa? And he's like, no. He's like, okay, fine, you don't have to do it. Let's pick someone else random. And then he goes to the other, there's only one other Latina that works there. So he goes to that one. But it's this whole episode on where like she was totally okay with handing out this salsa. And then she's like talking to customers, and she is like creating this faux Spanish accent. And the woman who was who was offended by the boss picking her, like it was this whole this whole scene where she's like, I can't believe you're doing this. This is our peep. But then by the end of the episode, she's doing the same exact thing, and it's just funny like how they took this this really sensitive subject. Because we are, especially in the States, like we are douchey with like how we, represent certain cultures. And it can be a sensitive subject, but they've been able to take like something like that and create this hilarious episode, and you actually learn something from it.
It's the Kafka line about how life's most serious and sensitive topics can be discussed only through jokes and humor, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the reason that you have something like South Park, or the Book of Mormon, like.
The musical.
The musical, right. Yeah.
Not the actual Book of Mormon.
Wait, that's not a parody?
Are you sure?
Slapstick humor.
Slapstick humor.
I thought it was like 60s dark humor. The ironists. No, yeah, the musical. But like, I really love the Mormon response to that was like to buy the full page ads and the initial playbook, or play the bill or whatever. And it's discussing rather sensitive topics that is really charged if you try to have a debate about Mormonism, or you have a debate about cultural appropriation. When you have debates about those, it becomes charged. But when South Park or Homer Simpson is doing it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can at least see this through the lens of humor.
Yeah, it makes it less. It's a serious thing, but it makes it a little less serious, and it makes
it approachable.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is also why I love sci-fi. You just put it in space and you can
It's
cover
so
anything.
True. Dude,
Oh,
Star
yeah.
Trek: The Next Generation.
It's brilliant.
Rewatching, they touch on so many sensitive subjects that like you wouldn't even think about.
can
But
do
you're
that
right,
in outer
because
space.
they're in outer space. You can talk about whatever you want.
Aliens, man.
Yeah, aliens, man.
Well, for my added value portion, I'm going to talk about two things. One is Randi's podcast. It's the Simple Self-Care podcast. She did a couple of conversations, one with my own partner, Bex.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And so they had a conversation. Put a link to that in the show notes. And also Jessica, the gal who works with us, a social media manager and all-around outstanding person, Jessica Lynn Williams. And you did a podcast with her
She's been
as
on
well.
twice now.
She's been on twice?
She's my second timer
Uh-huh.
on there.
Well, we'll put links
Yeah.
to both of those. Put a link to your website as well, naturallyrandykay.com. And then also there is an album that I've been listening to.
Is this new?
Yeah, the new Cat Power album came
I
out.
haven't even listened to it. When did it come out?
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh man, I have not checked it out yet. I can't wait to listen to
It's
that.
called Wanderer, and I think we'll end the episode in a little bit here with the title track. It's the first song on the album called Wanderer.
Cool.
Randy, has anything been adding value to your life recently?
Yeah, so a couple of things I've been thinking about just because I just am traveling right now. There's an app called Calm, which is a relatively new app, but I use it a lot at home. It's got a lot of really good meditations. It has music, like calming music on there, and you can, put in what you're looking for and duration or whatever. But my favorite part of it is they have bedtime stories. And they're read by
Get out of here,
Stephen Fry, and like the most soothing voices ever.
That sounds
So there's
awesome.
one I've been listening to. My husband and I listen to them a lot when we're going to bed. But there's one that I've been listening to over and over, and so I downloaded it for offline mode, and I was listening to it on the plane when I had a red eye, or even last night when I got in late. And I was so grateful I had this like sweet little bedtime story about lavender growing in France that
I love this.
that helped like trigger that sleep response.
I love so Mariah and I we've been trying to do, we attempted it for like a week, but it wasn't really working. We were trying to do audiobooks. But I'd get too engaged.
Yeah. No,
And-
exactly. You want to listen to that voice at
Right,
night.
exactly.
And it's only like 20-30 minutes. I usually don't make it to the end.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll add is that I haven't travel lightly. I don't like to have a lot of extra stuff when I travel. I know. But my husband's really into tech and gadgets, and I am always like, I don't need that. But he's like, take these, what's it called? Soundproof headphones.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen those. I've never used
And
them.
he put it like, he tested it out on me before I left, and I was like, whoa. And so I had these with me.
Do
And
they play an
Are
ambient
they like the
noise?
Bose ones?
they are the Bose ones.
Okay.
And
Do they play an ambient noise?
they,
No.
I think, no.
They're just literally noise canceling.
Yeah.
There's no electronics in them.
Well, no, they're
No, that the
they're a
technology
headphone.
is
you listen to
electronic.
music or whatever you want on them. They're
Yeah,
just
you
no-
connect it, but it
Oh.
takes out a lot of the whatever noise,
Okay.
white noise, whatever.
Okay.
But on the airplane, so much traveling, and I don't know what it is about people, but they love to play videos without headphones in airports.
That's unbelievable.
It just
These
blows my
people-
mind.
These people should be
I
arrested.
just-
These people.
No, seriously.
It's
The-
noise pollution, and it really
Yeah.
bothers me. So
If you're a person who listens to your phone out on speakerphone mode in public,
or worse, like you're having a full conversation on speakerphone with your phone in front of you.
yeah.
or you're listening to music or watching videos.
Stop
on
being
it.
inconsiderate, asshole.
Anyway, you can't control the people around you. You can control your headphones.
That's true.
So it's bulky to carry, so I was a little like, whatever. But they have been a total lifesaver, so I love those.
All right. Well, Sean, if you
Yeah,
can find a
that's
link for
great.
those, we'll put a link to those in the show notes as well. Let's move on to right here, right now. I'm going to skip most of these because we are running over on time. But I just want to say thanks to Randy.
Yeah.
Randy, we appreciate you being here. I'm
Thank
really
you.
grateful.
You're awesome.
If folks want to
Love you
find
guys.
We
out
love you,
more
man.
about you, I think your website is probably the best place. They can
Yep.
follow you on all the socials from there.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's just naturallyrandykay.com, Randy with an I, but we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. If you want to comment on this episode, you can do so on YouTube. If you want the show notes in your email inbox, just go to theminimalists.com. And you can enter your email address at the top. We'll never send you any spam because that stuff's gross, but we will send you any new show notes, any new writings from The Minimalists as well. There's quite a few new essays on our website as well, theminimalists.com. Ryan, you got anything else for us?
I have something for Randy. Hey,
Oh,
Randy, I
boy.
want you to check out these voicemail comments and tips from our listeners.
Sweet.
Hi, Josh and Ryan. It's Becky from England, just sending a voice message for all those people who are still struggling with family members buying them gifts, even though they've asked not to receive physical gifts. So I've been listening to the podcast, I think, for a year and a bit now. So I actually went back recently, listened to all your old podcasts right to the very beginning. And it seems like it's a recurring problem that people send in time and time again is, I'm getting really frustrated with family members keep buying me things even though we've told them that we're minimalists. And I just wanted to share a message of hope, really, as someone who has reached that turning point, I think 2 years or whatever into my minimalist journey. The penny has finally dropped with family members and friends, and they finally get it, and that is how long it can take. And I think it can even take even longer, because people have got a whole lifetime's worth of habits to shift. They've been buying you gifts, your whole life. So we've just been accepting gifts and smiling and sort of explaining that we're, embracing a minimalist lifestyle and that we live with less, and sharing our message, but trying to not get frustrated and, donating those gifts on. And it's felt like we've sent a lot of gifts to charity shops and donated them on. I mean, a lot of gifts. And I was starting to get even more frustrated. But this year we've really reached that turning point where people have stopped buying us things. So it was just a message of hope, really, to tell people to hold on, have patience and have faith that it's going to happen eventually. Because it can just take time. And I think when we first discovered the Minimalists, I remember I was so pumped, was so happy to see all these changes in my life, and we're so excited to do all these things overnight, like wake up the next morning and throw out most of our belongings, and we kind of want everybody to do it with the same speed, and it just takes everyone around us a lot longer, I think, to adjust to that. And I kind of didn't realize that at the time, so it was just to share that advice on to any other new listeners who are struggling with that give it time, because it will happen eventually.
Hey, Minimalists. My name's Emma Romo. I'm calling from Mammoth Lakes, California. I was calling with a tip for people who don't have enough space. Now, I don't mean go out and get storage or anything like that, but my husband and I recently moved into a motorhome. We live in an area where we have 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so we have a lot of clothes that change with the seasons. In our new RV, however, we don't have a lot of room to keep our clothes that we need for those different seasons. And getting rid of them would just be ineffective and a waste of money and irresponsible with our money. So what I've done is I've purchased 2 airtight bins, one for my husband and one for myself. We keep our fall clothes or winter clothes in these bins, folded up, with space bags if necessary for some of the bulkier items like snow pants or snowboard jackets, and gloves, of course, and long sleeve sweaters, shirts, etc. that we won't be wearing during the summertime. Come the winter, we'll pull these out when we need them, and we can swap in the summertime. It's really important to make sure you don't get carried away and just use this as an excuse to keep all your clothes, even though you don't really need them. But if you have limited space and you need these kinds of gear for different seasons, this is a great option.
Hi, this is Janaway, and I'm calling from Heber, Utah, about the most recent podcast episode 136, It's Mementos. I had a comment for your two callers that were asking about emotions being attached to things and wanting to know if they could get rid of, I think it was children's clothing that the one lady was keeping, and stuff that she'd gotten from her dad, I think. The other one, anyway, I had a couple of thoughts with this. My youngest son died when he was almost 2, and there's a lot of emotion involved with that, and there were a lot of things that were difficult, and one of those was cleaning up his room and cleaning out his stuff. We moved about a year after he died, and so I had to go through and pack all of the things that had been in his bedroom. And at the time, I did not have the energy or the ability to decide what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to get rid of. So I just packed everything that we had, and it fit in a couple of small totes, and it moved with us once, and then again a year and a half later, it moved with us again. And I knew that they were there, and they were in the little totes, but I did not touch them, did not open them, did not look at them. And finally, it was probably about 6 years after he died, I decided that I needed to go through that stuff. And so I went to the basement, which is where we put all of our stuff that we don't want to look at. And I opened up the totes and started to go through them. And I realized about halfway through the first one that I was still very emotionally attached to most of the items in there. So I told myself that I didn't have to get rid of anything, and I sat down and I just looked at everything and kind of processed the emotions that were involved and attached to these toys and these books and these pieces of clothing that we had kept. And then about a year later, I felt like I could go through them and determine what I wanted to keep, and I ended up donating almost everything. We pulled up, I think, a couple of outfits and 1 or 2 toys from my other children to use as mementos, and we have a little shadow box that we made that has a couple of toys and a pair of shoes, I think, of his. But everything else we ended up donating. And when I was ready to go through that stuff and I was ready to let it go, it was very peaceful, and it was very easy for me to identify what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to get rid of. So I guess my caution would be, if you still have a lot of emotion tied up in the clothing and you feel ambivalent about it, it's okay not to get rid of it all at once.
All right, y'all, that's it for this episode. If you have a question for the Minimalists, give us a call, 406-219-7839. You can also email a voice memo to podcast@theminimalists.com. And if you leave here with just one message, we hope it's this: love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
Randy, thanks again for being here.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll see you later.
All right, let's check out this track from Cat Power. It's the title track from Wanderer. Unless you're on YouTube, then there'll be a link or something. Click here.
The Minimalists.